sure everyone's good.
Yeah. Okay, who's first?
Okay, what is the mayor's response to what we're hearing from these protesters?
Well, I think that the main issue that the mayor's concerned about is making sure that Pittsburgh continues to grow. You know, everybody knows this. Decades and decades of decline. Now Pittsburgh is on an upswing. The world's seeing it, the region is seeing it, and our job is to create jobs, promote economic development, and really make sure that taxes increase so we can provide services to city residents. Now, every dollar that's created in taxes, you know, from developments like those in the North Shore, those are community benefits. Those go directly into worker training programs, into keeping our streets safe, clean. So all these development projects have benefits that are already connected to them. Think of the North Shore alone. For about 30, 40 years, you had a stadium and a sea of parking, right? Now, today, after a lot of this development is finished, or at least these phases that are now currently underway, you had 900 construction jobs, about 1,200 permanent jobs, and in terms of taxes, $5 to $10 million worth of taxes every year as a result of what's happened on the North Shore alone. And by the way, that's not at the expense of neighborhood development. If you just look in terms of the north side, there's about $85 million all over the north side in development right now, from Federal North to Garden Theater. So, it's a balance of making sure that we create jobs and taxes, to support the entire city, and then listening to the interest of a group of few who are here today to talk about what they want. So really, it'd be the easiest thing politically to go out there and say, okay, good, and to say, this is now law, whatever it is that you say, that's what we should do. But that wouldn't really benefit the city or the region as a whole. Another big thing here when we talk about what's going on outside is whether or not the city would be at a competitive disadvantage if we adopt some of their approaches. What's being talked about outside is, in the city of Pittsburgh, we should have one paradigm, maybe increase a wage, or create a new minimum wage that isn't applicable anywhere else in the country, isn't applicable anywhere else in the state, let alone the county. What we're seeing today is that certain hotel developments, for example, are deciding not to come to Pittsburgh because of this sort of activity. And I think it's really sad, because what that means is that those continue to grow, but just in the airport corridor. That means that city residents aren't benefiting from those taxes. They're also not benefiting from vacant properties that all of you guys talk about all the time actually coming to some productive use. So once again, the goal is to create jobs and to promote economic development so that we can generate taxes to provide city services. And that's what our economic development policy is really about.
What kind of hotels have decided not to come to Pittsburgh?
Well, you'd really have to talk to the URA about that. There are specific examples of hotels that right now, there's one on the south side that had been contemplated for several years. There's one at the Pittsburgh Technology Center that had also been contemplated for several years. That really right now is saying, we're just not going to build under certain conditions.
Will the mayor or anyone representing the mayor be meeting with representatives of these labor
That's a
groups?
great question, Bob. We actually have, and the mayor has too. The mayor's met with Gabe Morgan, so have I, who's been the spokesperson for the group. He's from SEIU, several times on this particular topic, when it applied to the arena, now, and now from reading the press release, they want some kind of a component of a new minimum wage for any development project that has a dollar of public subsidy. Look, nobody wants to provide public subsidy for projects. If we could get them done without public subsidy, we would. We wouldn't need the governor's help to get us money to Pittsburgh. We wouldn't need to use state or federal dollars for that. But we provide subsidies so that we can make the economy grow. And luckily we are. I mean, if you look at what's happening now in Pittsburgh, it's growing. We're a story of transformation. The G20 is coming here. President Obama is talking about us. We're on the map. So the question is, are we going to go in the wrong direction or the right direction? And the bottom line is that some people will always balk or want to stop progress.
Well, what's wrong with negotiating a community benefits agreement for the North Shore? When it does improve the neighborhood, there are improvements as a result of CBAs.
Well, there can be, but there can also be improvements, and there are already improvements with or without a CBA. To create a paradigm in Pittsburgh where you can't have a development without a CBA sends the wrong message to developers and really the folks the world over. We have developers now who are already saying, look, Pittsburgh, I like you guys, but I'd much rather go to Millville or the airport corridors because I don't have those sorts of issues right here, in that town as opposed to this town. So right now we're looking at a very parochial sort of thing. It's city versus, are there any discussions about the development that's happening in the county? How about the 10-county region? How about the state? So when we put ourselves at a competitive disadvantage and say, hey, developer, you want to come to Pittsburgh? Community benefits agreement, where is it? Another important thing to note is which community is negotiating a benefits agreement. There's a Northside Leadership Conference on the North Side. I'm sure if you talk to them, they'd think that if there were any benefits to be had, they should be talking about them as opposed to this group, which is the Northside United Group. So it's not so much about, you know, a CBA or a signed CBA, but rather what are the benefits of development. I'll tell you the benefits of development right now, just on the North Shore alone, are millions of dollars in taxes, 900 jobs that were created just in construction alone, 1,200 permanent jobs. You know, on what used to be a sea of parking. You all remember that. I mean, most of you here saw Three River Stadium, and nothing grew there, nothing grew. And now we have growth, and now we have development. And those tax dollars go to benefit the programs that we're running in the north side and throughout the city. Here's another point that I'll make to you. Is it fair to have the north side benefit from developments that are in the north side? In other words, if there was a CBA, why should Homewood not experience some kind of lift or growth, you know, from a CBA just because a project is in the north side or the Hill District, right? It's really not a fair system of going about developing. And more importantly, we just can't, you know, the developers are not, you know, keen to it. And we need to continue the growth. I've had the organizers of today's protest sit in a room with me, sit in an office with me. And I've said, well, if you could have a choice, you know that there will be no development because that's what the developers are saying. They will not do a development with a CBA. Or, you know, or we have the development but there's no CBA. They've said to me point blank, well, I'd rather not see the development. And these were folks who weren't even from here, they're from DC. So Pittsburgh wants to see the development, and this community deserves to see the development because it means jobs and taxes. So we just don't share the same interest, you know, on their specific issues.